All this time you've been wondering why she lost interest, why your texts go unanswered, why the same spark that started off hot faded into silence. You blamed your looks, your personality, maybe even thought you were just too nice. But here's the part no one told you. It's not that you're boring, bro. You're just too available, always there, always eager, always ready to respond, to validate, to jump when she flinches. And there's no mystery in that, no tension, no space for her desire to grow. Because when a man makes himself constantly available, he removes the one thing that ignites obsession: uncertainty. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to stop being the predictable guy she ignores and start being the man she can't stop thinking about. She doesn't want you boring, she wants you elusive, unreachable, but not disinterested, present but never chasing. And you've been showing up like a goddamn butler. Yes, ma'am, right away. Anything else? You text back in 2 minutes. You cancel plans for her. You double text when she doesn't respond. And you think that's being loyal, being real, being a good man. But from her eyes, you're just confirming what every other guy with no spine does. You're showing her she already has you, fully. No resistance, no mystery, no game. And if she doesn't have to work to win you, why should she care about keeping you? You ever seen a lion chase a deer that walks right up and lays down at its feet? Neither has she. Attraction lives in the tension. It needs space to breathe, but you suffocate it by being too close, too soon, too often. You kill the thrill with your need to be needed, and no one is turned on by a man who needs them to feel whole. She doesn't want a boy waiting for her to decide. She wants a man who already decided on himself, whether she shows up or not. And let me tell you something that might sting. You weren't being kind. You were being desperate. You didn't check on her because you're a good guy. You did it because you needed a hit of her attention to feel like a man again. You weren't offering help. You were offering yourself up for approval. You disguised insecurity as devotion, and now you're surprised she doesn't want it? She didn't leave you because you weren't good enough. She left because she already figured out she had you. And the moment she saw that, you were no longer a mystery. You were a guarantee. And guarantees don't raise heart rates. They don't get stalked on Instagram. They don't get dreamed about at night. They get forgotten. You didn't even realize the game you were losing because you thought availability was value. That being the yes man meant being chosen. But real men don't chase women who run. They attract them by standing still, calm, centered, undisturbed. Let her wonder where you are. Let her feel the space. That silence you're scared of, that's where her curiosity is born. That's where the seeds of desire take root. But you filled every silence with texts, every pause with check-ins, every moment apart with some sad little meme trying to get her attention. And now she knows she doesn't have to earn you. You already gave yourself away. I still remember sitting in a bar when a guy next to me got a text from his girl. He glanced at it, locked his phone, and kept sipping his drink. Didn't even blink. I watched him for a second, calm, unbothered, the kind of man who wasn't in a rush to prove anything. And then I watched his phone light up again. Another message, then another. I leaned over and said, "You gonna answer her?" He smirked, sipped again, and said, "Eventually, she'll be fine." That's when it hit me. He wasn't rude. He was rare. He wasn't playing a game. He just didn't orbit her. He had his own gravity, and she felt it. That's why she kept texting. You don't need to ignore her to spark interest, but you do need to stop orbiting around her world like you've got nothing going on in yours. You've been taught to always be nice. Be attentive. Show her she matters. But the moment you make her the center of your world, she starts spinning away from you. Why? Because women aren't wired to chase comfort. They're wired to chase value. And if you're always there, always responding, always ready, what value are you showing? That your life's on hold until she replies? That doesn't build attraction. That builds boredom. And boredom is fatal, not just to relationships, to self-respect. Because every time you respond instantly, she sees that her time is worth more than yours. Every time you cancel your plans to see her, she learns your life is negotiable. Every time you try to win her back with attention, she realizes she doesn't have to do anything to earn it. You've already decided she's the prize, and now, you're just another contestant she didn't invite. Let me be brutal here. You don't become unforgettable by being available. You become unforgettable by being undeniable. And that starts when your focus shifts from how do I keep her to how do I keep building me. Because the second you stop making her your reason and start making her a reward, everything changes. You become the guy who doesn't text her all day because he's building something. You don't double text because you're busy living a life she'd actually want to be part of. You don't chase because your energy is already invested in your mission. When you pull back, not to punish her but to center yourself, you give her space to step forward. And if she doesn't, then you didn't lose a woman. You dodged a distraction. But if she does step back in, now she's chasing, now she's wondering. Now you're no longer the easy yes, you're the maybe. And that maybe, that's where her mind lives. That's where obsession is born, in the gap between what she thinks she has and what she's not sure she can get. In the gap between what she thinks she has and what she's not sure she can get. So the next time you feel that itch to send a just thinking of you text, don't. Let her think of you first. The next time you're tempted to ask if she got home safe, let her wonder why you didn't. Not because you're cold. Because you're composed. Not because you're detached. Because you're grounded. She doesn't want a puppet. She wants a presence. A man who can stand still in the storm of her emotions and not flinch. But you've been flinching, folding, chasing. It's time to stop. Here's the myth you've been fed since you were a kid. If you treat her like a queen, she'll stay. That's cute. But here's reality. Treating her like royalty doesn't work if you treat yourself like a servant. It's not the respect you give her that turns her off. It's the disrespect you show yourself. She watches you adjust your entire life around her mood swings, your schedule around her replies, your energy around her approval. That's not love. That's weakness dressed in romantic desperation. She doesn't want a man who worships her. She wants a man who worships his purpose and lets her earn a seat beside him. But every time you ignore your own needs to meet hers, you're not being noble, you're being forgettable. Because you're telling her that nothing about your path matters unless she's walking it with you. And that's exactly when she walks away. Why? Because women don't want to lead you, they want to be led by you. You've been asking for permission when you should have been walking in conviction. You get labeled boring when you offer everything before she's even earned your attention. You get ignored when you throw away your edges to become what you think she wants. And the cruel irony is, she would have respected you more if you had kept being the guy she met at the start, the one who had boundaries, the one who had his own plans, the one who didn't make her feel like the sun and the moon and the damn air he breathes. Let me give it to you straight. Emotionally weak men always overinvest. You want her to stay, so you give more. She pulls back, and instead of matching her energy, you increase yours. That's not strength. That's survival mode. That's little boy energy dressed in overcompensation. You think you're winning her over with consistency, but what you're really doing is training her to devalue your effort. Why would she value what comes without cost? Why would she crave what she never had to earn? You don't realize it, but every time you say yes when your soul screams no, you lose a piece of yourself, and she sees it. Women feel your energy long before they hear your words. You can say all the right things. I'm a high-value man. I know my worth. I'm not like other guys. But if your actions scream neediness, she'll feel it in her gut. And nothing kills desire faster than a man who doesn't stand for himself. So the next time you think you're being ghosted or brushed off because you're boring, think again. You were too easy. You were too eager. You were always around. Always available, always offering value she didn't have to reach for. And now you're wondering why she's out chasing a guy who barely texts back. That's not random. That's instinct. Women crave polarity. They crave challenge. They crave a man who's so locked into his vision, she has to fight to be part of it. So stop asking why she lost interest. Start asking why you stopped having any. You want to know what makes a man unforgettable? It's not his looks, not his money, not even how good he is in bed. It's his absence, his restraint, his silence. The fact that she can't quite get to him. That when she calls, he doesn't always answer. When she sends that risky text, he leaves it on read. Not because he's playing games, but because he's not available to be played with. His time is not cheap, his attention is not scattered, his soul is not for sale, but you gave her all access. From day one, you laid your value out like a clearance rack. Every emotion, every compliment, every hour of your day, she didn't have to work for a damn thing. And you're shocked that she walked away. Bro, she didn't walk. She drifted. Slowly, unconsciously, the way we all do when we get something too easily. She never even realized it was happening. One day, she just woke up and didn't feel the same. And you're still texting her paragraphs, begging for closure. Here's your closure. You were too easy. And in the primal wiring of her brain, that translates as not worth it. You want her respect? Be willing to walk. You want her obsession? Let her feel your absence. Not because you're manipulating her, but because you finally stopped manipulating yourself into being the guy you think she'll love. You've stopped chasing comfort and started building power. And when a woman sees a man so deep in his mission that her presence feels like a privilege, not a necessity, she wakes up. She tunes in. She starts wondering about you again. And that wondering, that's where the fire is. But you've been an open book. No mystery, no pause, no edge. And women don't fall in love with open books. They fall in love with unfinished stories, characters they can't predict, men they can't fully read. It's in the uncertainty that their attraction grows. But you gave her the last chapter before she even finished chapter 1. You fast-tracked connection, thinking it would speed up her feelings. Instead, it short-circuited her interest. And here's the truth most guys don't want to hear. You can be a great man, a good soul, a loyal dude, and still get left, ignored, or friend-zoned. Why? Because goodness isn't rare. Self-control is. Masculine composure is. A man who can sit in the discomfort of not being chosen and not fold, that's the man who commands attention. Not the one begging for another shot. Not the one crying about how real he was. The one who lets her go with a calm, do what you need to do and never looks back. That man lives in her head, rent-free. So what now? You stop explaining yourself. You stop chasing. You stop giving her the emotional luxury of knowing you'll always be there, no matter how she acts. You become the guy who shows up when it matters and disappears when he's disrespected. You teach with absence. You inspire with silence. And you lead, not with words, but with energy. When she can no longer predict your next move, that's when she remembers you. You think being always there makes her feel secure, but it doesn't. It makes her feel suffocated. It makes her feel like she can't breathe without being watched, praised, pursued. And at first, that might flatter her, but over time, it rots. Because deep down, she doesn't want to be worshipped. She wants to be earned. She wants to feel like she's part of a story worth chasing, not the final chapter of a desperate man's fairy tale. You became predictable. Predictability is comfort, but comfort is not desire. Desire needs distance, it needs polarity, and that means she needs to feel that you could walk away at any moment if your standards aren't met. That doesn't mean you're cold. It means you're not afraid to lose something that isn't aligned. And most men can't do that. Most men would rather hold on to a half-hearted woman than risk being alone. But that's exactly why they keep losing. You become unforgettable when you're not afraid to disappear. When she pulls away and you don't chase, she starts questioning herself. Wait, did I misread him? Why isn't he reaching out? Did he move on? And that's the very tension that makes her want to reach back out. But you'll never get to see that if you keep interrupting the silence with your need for reassurance. You kill your own power every time you text, just checking in. You erase your own mystery every time you break the silence just to feel seen. And let's get something straight. This isn't about playing hard to get. That's childish. This is about being hard to reach. Because you're focused. Because you're building. Because you're no longer available to women who don't match the intensity of your standards. You're no longer addicted to the validation of someone who couldn't even value your presence when she had it. And that shift, that's when everything changes. She calls, you let it ring, she texts, you answer when you're ready. Not as revenge, but as realignment. You no longer feel the pressure to prove your worth, because now your value speaks without words. She sees you shining without her. That's what burns. That's what brings her back. And by the time she does, you won't even need her to. Because you're not that man anymore. You don't get her back by waiting. You get her back by never needing her again.